Welcome to the New Media Show. My name is Todd Cochran. Of course, I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Rob Greenlee. Rob, how you doing?
I'm doing okay, Todd. No complaints. Stuff charging along here. This podcast medium is just unrelenting. It's just so much going on, and we got a lot to talk about on the show today too.
Yeah, it's just for me. It's been like I don't know the best way to describe it. It's been well, I kind of put it this way: get a call, got an inquiry, get pricing, and then you don't hear from them for a week, and then they call you at 3:00 in the afternoon on a Friday and say, "We're ready to go now, right now. Let's go right now, right now." And you're like, "Okay."
Right.
But that's kind of how
a little bit here.
it's kind of how it's been.
Getting a little intense. Yes.
Yeah. So I do have to make a mention. I don't know if I can see it. Of course, those of you listening don't care, but from my sunburn on Saturday, my head is flaking now. So it looks like I have dandruff, but it's just dead skin coming off the top of my head. I know that's TMI, but I'm wearing a black shirt. So I'm keeping have to like shake my black shirt because I'm like a reptile today.
So that's a good thing.
Oh yeah, okay.
It doesn't look like it that much.
No,
I did it. I mean, believe me, I feel a little bit more normal now. I was getting a little wild there for a while.
So you just, you gotta. I don't think you've got the noggin to go bald like I do. And maybe you do. I don't know, but
we'll see, right?
Yeah, we'll see. Give yourself another 10 years, but
right.
Anyway,
yeah.
Ron, Stephanie, Brad, thanks. And Brad says it sounds good, and then Ron says it sounds like it's distorting a bit. So maybe it is tweaked up a little bit. Maybe I bumped a lever somewhere.
Yeah.
But
it doesn't sound as naturally sweet as it normally does, Todd.
Well, I don't know. I don't know what has happened. I am naturally sweet to begin with. So
right there you go. Right.
So we're getting a good group of folks that are coming on Facebook, and make sure you say hello. And those of you on YouTube as well, try to pay attention over there a little more today because we got some people watching on YouTube as well. But yeah, so yesterday was Blackout Tuesday, but I really didn't see only but a small number of people actually do anything for Blackout Tuesday.
Yeah, I think it was mainly on the Instagram platform is where I saw it the most. I didn't see a lot of it on Facebook. So I don't know why, but
so what did people do? They just change their profiles to black, or what was the? How could you tell?
Most people just posted a black square
image,
or that black image had some textual commentary about what was happening and what the changes needed to be, or some quote from Martin Luther King or something like that.
I wasn't even aware because that it was happening. I was been head down working, not having the TV on a lot. Of course, it's hard to miss some of the stuff on social, what's going on. But so Monday we're ready to go with 8.3 on WordPress. We planned to release that on Monday morning, and we unloaded 8.3. We had a blog post that went out, and then I'm like talking with during the morning meeting, talking with my team. I'm like, okay, so the press release is going to go 3 a.m. tomorrow, and Mackenzie's like, you probably shouldn't do that. And I'm like, well, why? And
because of all the stuff going on.
And we'd already pre-scheduled it. So we kind of were like, so we let it go at 3:00 in the morning, didn't hold it back, but we really didn't press hard yesterday on anything. So yeah, I just didn't know that it was going on. And
right.
I understand why, but
yeah,
I don't know, I guess, my point is, I don't know, I kind of look at this whole thing a little bit different, Rob, and I am not one to have any type of idea on how people are treated. Having been married to a Japanese woman before, we kind of saw some of that when we were in Southern Maryland 20 years ago.
Right.
But having been in the Navy for 25 years, for me, what was interesting, and the thing I always talk about some of the buddies I worked with, not that there wasn't issues in the Navy, there was from time to time, and a lot of times on bigger commands, big carriers, there was there was race issues. But the groups I worked with, we were integrated from, I went in the Navy in 1983, and we were 100% integrated in 83, and very diverse. Matter of fact, there was a bigger black-white component in 83 than there was men-women component. The women kind of joined the force
I bet.
later. So it was...
that makes sense.
Yeah, so for me, it was kind of like I worked in this integrated workforce for years. I relied on that guy on the right. It didn't matter what color or it didn't matter. That because you relied on that person equally, and you're all buddies and or friends. And so, and I had come from a community that was pretty white. And my mom and dad were pretty, when I was growing up, and this would have been, late 70s, early 80s, my parents were pretty progressive, and we'd hear somebody say something and, maybe there wasn't a response to it, but we'd get in the car or whatever, and my mom would be like, don't you ever, I'll beat you to an inch within your life, So from my family standpoint, we were, but again, I can't walk in anybody else's shoes. So.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. Well, I guess it's been it's been an issue for a very long time, right?
Yeah.
And it's definitely come to a head over the last few weeks here. But
and I think we all understand that the death that happened in Minneapolis was, and I really will encourage people, if you haven't watched the full 8-minute video, you should watch the full 8-minute video. And if you can stomach your way through the full 8-minute video, you may come out with a different perspective instead of seeing a 15-second clip on TV. But at the same point, peaceful protesting, I think, we all want that. But this violence has gotten, and if there's bad characters doing this violence, or if it's some sort of organized stuff, that is really concerning here, because are they just making an opportunity out of a horrible tragedy?
Right, which I think has been happening, I'm sure.
So, and I think on Saturday we're going to have we're going to have a guest on Saturday. Maybe we'll talk a little bit more about this on Saturday, but
yeah, Donald Albright, who's one of the founders of Tenderfoot TV, is gonna join us, and he's also the vice chair of the Podcast Academy too. So it would be interesting. He's been involved in the podcasting space for a few years now. He did a couple podcasts called the Atlanta Monster podcast. It's basically a true crime series, and the Up and Vanished series as well. So I thought it'd be great to have Donald on right now to talk about the true crime genre, as well as maybe, he's been pretty outspoken about what's been happening, with the topic that Todd and I have been talking about what happened in Minneapolis, and maybe he can give us some insight into, how the podcasting space kind of fits into being a positive, kind of a positive influence on things going forward.
Well, Rob, though, let's look at the podcasting space just kind of from our perspective. When we started in 04 and 05, it was pretty much male dominated.
It was.
And even though early on there was the LGBTQ component, the ladies kind of come later in droves.
Right.
But now, I think our growth is as far as diversity goes, I think we see more women starting podcasts than men. And we go to conferences like Podcast Movement, and I love it, to be honest with you, because, and I've said it on this show many times before, is we needed their voices, and those voices are in podcasting. And I'll say it again, those voices are in podcasting because they haven't been given an equal voice anywhere else.
Right.
And podcasting gives those voices an equal voice to be able to say things. It's just like I went to that Spark conference in Houston, and it's a group, and the women there were like, we want to be able to have a voice, but it was for different reasons than, maybe they weren't able to have leadership positions in their churches and so forth. So they were able to have a leadership position in their podcast. And then you have women that are of color that are they're talking about their issues and things that are going on. And I don't know if you sat through that session that I did at DragonCon, where that diversity
Yeah,
group.
yeah. I was sitting right next.
And that did that wow you a little bit?
Yeah,
That
I think
session?
it was. It's the elephant in the room. And what the opportunity in the podcasting medium too is. I mean, purely from a positive perspective, the more that this podcast space looks like the general population,
Right.
the more we're going to get listeners, the more from that general population, and the more creators that we're going to get. So that reflect the culture and society and the diversity of our civilization. I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's what what's going to grow the medium more is the diversity than really anything else. I mean, we can have great technology and Google can support it and stuff, but at the end of the day, this is a people medium,
Right.
And the more diversity we can have, and the more diverse voices, the more accepting that we can be of those voices, the more influential and powerful and more impactful this medium is on everybody's life. Yeah.
So I had and it may not be related, and I don't know fully the context of the individual's content, but I had an individual email me the other day, and he says, I'm being told that podcasts are better served offshore. And I'm like, well, where did you hear that? He said, well,
better served in what way, Todd? I mean,
basically in a server sitting outside of the United States, someplace where that media can't be touched and won't be taken down. And it kind of struck me kind of funny. And I didn't ask the individual what type of content they were going to be doing, but I said, listen, that is not the case. I said, the way this median, it just struck me funny. And in the context of what's going on today, I wonder if the individual was going to have some content that was on the fringe. I don't know.
Right.
But I said, listen, over all the years that we've been doing this business, I can probably take the show takedowns on 1 to 2 hands in 14 years. Not that many.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah.
Not many. And usually those shows that are not, for a better word, following our terms of service, hate speech, something to that, it's we again, very few shows that we've ever had to take down. So when someone said, yeah, I'm going to put my media over offshore because it won't be more a chance taken down, I got to thinking, well, depending on what country that show sits in, you might actually get taken down faster there than you would in the United States. So again, but it was just a weird. I asked him, who told you that? Where did you get this information? And I didn't get a response to it. So,
yeah, Todd, I think it gets back to, I think that there's a perception, and this was in the radio, business for many years too, is that, these pirate radio outlets, right, that were out there, and some of them I've heard in the past, they were like offshore on boats or something.
Right.
And those radio stations were not, governed by the FCC or whatever, and that was the rationale for that. I don't see that as an issue in the podcasting space at all, though some of the most significant takedowns that we've experienced, Todd, have been kind of related to the issues of today.
Absolutely.
Right. So, around, the extremist groups that are out there that tend to be violent, tend to be disruptive to our society, and are, basically their goals in existence tend to break laws, right? So that's where those conflicts have come in, is where when the content that's being produced is insightful to violence or insinuates the intent of violence.
Right. And I think that the majority of the takedowns, as you refer to it, in the last 5 years, one of the major one was because of intent of violence. Right. And then a couple of the other ones were definitely white supremacist shows
that's been the vast majority of it.
Yeah. So other than that, we've had people say, oh, someone talked bad about me. Well, go sue him. He talked bad about you. That's, he's expressed his opinion about you. You need to take that legally. It's not something that broke our terms of service. So because we probably get as equal number of requests for takedowns that don't get taken down because people are just pissed off because someone said something about them they didn't like, or interview turned out bad, or something to that effect. Dave says in the chat room, he says, I think for 99% American households, race is not an issue. Dave, I would contend that 99% might be a little high. Even today.
Right.
And I don't know what that number is.
Yeah. I would hope that it's that high, but
Yeah, me
I don't
too.
think I don't think we would be seeing what we're seeing right now if it was that high.
Well, again, Rob, let's also put into context here. Let's be careful here. What we're seeing is peaceful protesting. I'm for it all day, every day. As long as you want to do it, go for it. You want to go out there and scream and yell and show signs, and that's what I spent 25 years in the Navy supporting freedom of speech, all that stuff. Absolutely. Now, you start throwing Molotov cocktails, then it changes.
Right, it does. It becomes it becomes a law and order issue or a criminal issue.
The sad part is,
if you start breaking laws, then there's consequences for that.
You might have had 1,000 peaceful protesters or 10,000, and you bring in 50 that are going to start busting windows and stuff. Then it makes the entire 1,000 look bad. But there's really 1,000 good people out there, and then there's 50 bad eggs.
Well, and that may be the reason that the 50 bad eggs are there, is they want to make the 1,000 look bad. So, that's unfortunately, I think, may be the motivation here.
But it's definitely a time that most of us probably have not seen. You go back to Rodney King and some of those other events that happen. There's so many, unfortunately. And the bad part is the science behind, and I know we're not talking a lot about podcasting here today, but so far is that those communities suffer for years and years and years and years.
Yeah.
Because people just throw their hands up and say, forget it. And, it takes 20 years for them to recover. And that's the sad part about this. So, anyway,
we can move on, but, I think the topic may come up. Just be prepared. The topic may come up a little bit on the show on Saturday too. So, but it'll be a constructive and positive conversation.
Yeah. Dave says it's not much lower. It's also my favorite number, 99.
There you go.
Well, anyway, welcome to everyone. Welcome to New Media Show. Yes, this is the New Media Show, and Rob and I do not claim to be any experts in anything except for podcasting. So,
right, totally. That's true.
But there's been, so I guess I'll toot my own horn because we basically I don't know if I talked about it on the last show or not, but we released WordPress 8.3 with a major UI update, and we're really excited about I think on the last show we talked about it. This UI stuff takes forever.
Yeah, and Libsyn is working on UI stuff too, so gonna be looking for some new experiences on that platform as well. So that'd be good.
Dave says, think of the millions and millions of people in the USA. The looters and racists are a much smaller number, but that's not to say there isn't a problem in this country. There is, and yes. But I will say this as well. Having traveled to, I think my count is about 60 countries over the past 30 years. I wouldn't trade America for almost any country. I'd be hard pressed to find. And again, everyone feels the same about the country they live in. So,
sure, yeah, you bet.
To a certain extent, some do, some don't.
Yeah, I've traveled abroad a lot. I certainly haven't been to 60 countries, but I've been to enough to see the diversity that's out there. And there's a lot of diversity in how cultures have developed and countries have grown. And I think the big thing about the USA that's so different that I think sometimes we don't think about is just how diverse this country is. It's basically, it truly is a melting pot of cultures and viewpoints and things like that. And that creates kind of a potential of a volatile situation, right?
Well,
where a lot of countries in the world are fairly, I don't know what the right word to describe it is, but not as diverse. So, but anyway, we can move on and talk about some things that happened, earlier in the week.
Did you see this study that came out of Canada? with Joe Rogan, and it's just something.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah.
That about 41% said I would listen to it or watch it less often than I do now, and 23. Well, of the 41%, 23% I would stop listening to it or watching it if it was only available on Spotify. And I would love to see the demographic of that 23%.
Yeah. Well, as we know, Spotify tends to be demographically much younger.
Yeah.
And Joe's audience may tend to be a little older.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But
so that could account for this.
We'll see what happens. And we're missing, though. Did you listen to Infinite Dial in Canada today? Did you tune in for that?
I did not. Yeah, I had a call that I had to be on.
Yeah, I was pretty busy too. So we missed it. We probably can pull up that. I wonder if those screenshots are available. Let me look here. If let's see here.
Yeah, I mean, purely if you look at it from what we saw in the Infinite Dial in Canada last year, is that the per capita consumption of podcasts is higher there than it is in the U.S. So it's growing and doing very, very well up there. But as we probably wouldn't be surprised, the content coming out of the U.S. is pretty much dominating that. There's not a huge amount of content that's being created in Canada that's just being consumed in Canada. But there is some very, very good podcasts being produced in Canada that are very, very popular as well.
I'm on the Edison Research website, and I'm trying to see if they've got. I don't know if they've posted it yet.
Yeah, it did say that 8% of all Canadians, listened to the Joe Rogan show in the last month. 8%.
That's a pretty big number. You think about it.
Yeah.
Some politicians would die for that. Die for those types of numbers, but I don't see it posted up publicly yet.
And the numbers that I've seen in the past, the Vancouver, British Columbia part of Canada it has the highest consumption of podcasts. So on the west coast of Canada is where most of the listening is happening.
All right. And again, it gets, this week has come off a short news week from last week, so there might not be a lot of stuff. But Dan J. Lewis put out a number that in May, 96,537 shows started in May. That's a bigger number than what I thought it would be, because 90,000 started in April, 90,977. So 96,000.
Yes. So it's up 6,000 shows higher than April, right?
Yeah. So according to, there's now 1,136,520 podcasts in Apple Podcasts. And I think I had actually gave us, I'm going to go look at our number again, because we had talked about it just a little bit here. Let's see here. Let's see what my count is. The 1136. We're at 1213. So again, about 60,000, 70,000 ahead of the Apple Podcast directory. That's still an incredible number.
Yeah, Todd, and the number also about Spotify being now more popular than Apple Podcasts for Canadian podcast listeners under the age of 35. So that kind of plays into what we were just saying a little bit about how the demographic of Spotify listeners is different than Apple Podcasts. So I would say that Apple Podcast tends to be probably maybe a little older than that.
But I am a little concerned about this other number here that the IAB released, saying that this report of internet advertising revenue for 2019, digital audio advertising revenue was at $2.7 billion. That's an increase of 21%. That number includes all forms of audio streaming, not just podcasting, but the Bureau attributes 25% growth in audio revenue on mobile devices in large part to podcasting. So I did not attend this. I was signed up for it and missed it. So I'm going to see here. Did they actually break out? Did they actually break out the podcast numbers in itself? I don't think so.
Yeah, I didn't see that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't see the full report.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Yeah, I don't think why can't I download it? Maybe I have to sign in to get to it. Well, anyway, so AIB Internet. That's impact report, consumer media usage report. Well, maybe they haven't put it online, but yeah. So that's a 2.7 billion. We were hoping to get to 2 billion in podcast ad revenue by. Didn't we have another year to go?
Yeah, I think it was 2021. I believe was the target date.
But I do see, and this is kind of interesting because I saw this before, is where I'm getting a rash of RFPs now from podcast people that are just joining the advertising space in podcasting. So instead of spending their money, matter of fact, the gal I talked to this morning, their advertisers have pulled all their money out of radio and they are putting it all in podcasting. So I thought that was a big wow moment for this, to say, yeah, they pulled their entire budget out of radio and they want to put it on podcasting. They do want to do a little geo-targeting, but they're talking with them, making them understand that those are often micro audiences. They're going to kind of work on their campaign to figure out how they can give it to a bigger voice.
Right.
Because, he said, well, I just want to hit these 3 states. And I'm like, okay, so and you got plenty of money to spend. And I'm like, well, you don't have to spend that much money because we're not going to be able to spend it all.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So I thought that was curious that they're pulling money out of radio. That's the first anyone said that to me directly.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
But but you would think Drive is starting to recover now a little bit, but maybe not.
Well, that's what I've heard is that the some of the platforms are starting to report that we're getting back up into normal range now of listening again. So those platforms that had shown a decline seem to be starting to turn around now. So I think people are driving the cars around more, and maybe I don't know how much people are flying or taking trains or those kind of things yet, but I think it's definitely stepping up again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and Todd, did you see the 9 to 5 Mac article talking about Apple Podcasts should allow Patreon style donation options in the Apple UI? Did you hear about
Say
this?
that again?
So the 9 to 5 Mac website at 9to5mac.com actually has an article up here. Says Apple Podcasts should allow Patreon style donation options in their player app.
Right.
So I don't know. I think it's a good idea for them to do that. I don't know that conversation has come up directly with Apple that I've been involved in. So I don't think it's a bad idea. But I'm not sure how Apple would actually support this, if they would want to take a cut of that, or if it would be a pass-through type of situation. It hasn't been a topic that I've had with them.
They're under no obligation to do that.
No, and that's quite obvious because they haven't done it in 16 years. So it's been actually Apple really has been pretty hands-off with all forms of monetization, actually. So there's nothing to stop you from putting a donation button in your show notes or
on your website.
So Apple really doesn't have to do anything for podcasters to do this.
And I don't know if you guys support it, but we support the link in the RSS feed to be able to link to your contribution page or your PayPal account. There's a way to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So if apps that support that can pick it up. Right. I think when it comes, I think what people are always looking for in this 9 to 5 Mac, dialogue, we're all as podcasters responsible for our own stuff. And my
Right.
Slack messaging is going. I got to turn my volume down. It's just, I don't know. If someone wants to donate to my show, I am very clear where they should go. Even this show, we tell you, hey, there's a link in the show notes. You want to throw us a dime? It's our responsibility as podcasters to tell our audience members where they can go to donate for the show. I don't need a Patreon account. This is the thing that cracks me up. Everyone's going, oh, I got to go set up a Patreon account.
Right.
Well, if you have a PayPal account, you don't pay as much. At least I
Right.
think so. And
Yeah, I think that the comment here is not necessarily specific to Patreon. I think they were using it as an example of that type of donation model. But yeah, Todd, I agree with you 100%. I mean, this article probably shouldn't have used the Patreon name to refer to this. I think it should have been just more of a generic reference around donation models, right?
right.
I think that there's a perception by many out there that Patreon is the only donation model. And that's just not the case.
And if you go to my main show's website, and there's nothing on there, but I tell my audience where that it's a link on, and it's it's not fancy. For those of you watching, it's not updated yet. Hang on, let me wait. Oh, there it goes.
It's just a PayPal.
It's just a
donate.
and they can select how much they want. 2, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 40, 50, $60 a month. Now, the highest I get on my show is a $25 a month donation. And then we have some rewards following the Adam Curry model. Right. Or they can do a one-time donation, So this is not, I guess for a better word, anything fancy, but, I get a fair number of donations to my show just by having that. And I don't have a PayPal link on my main website. I used to, but I figured it was taking up too much valuable real estate for the whole show, or for the website. That's why I put it on a subpage. Right.
Yeah. So this article mentions that Apple would be able to take, let's say, 15% of the revenue for processing and handling the transaction. I think it depends on how involved we want these platforms in controlling or being able to funnel these types of things. And certainly Apple could do such a thing. I don't know that it would be really worth their time and effort to do this. Would it escalate the amount of donations made to podcasts? Yeah, there's a possibility that it might.
I doubt it.
Well,
do you make donations via apps now?
Yeah, but if you only have it off your website, versus having a link to it in the Apple Podcast Player app, where would you be most likely to click on it? It may be in the Player app, right?
First of all, well, here's my thought on this. Is likely that the only people are going to donate anyway are the super fans.
Right.
So they're going to, if you tell them you need support for the show, they're going to come to the website and buy merch or do a donation.
Right.
I don't think the average listener, maybe the average listener, it's an impulse saying, yeah, I'll throw them $2 or $5
right.
or 10, maybe in the app. So, but
I think I would be supportive of Apple doing such a thing. Just from the standpoint of, trying to get podcasters some revenue, coming in.
Yeah, but potentially. I don't know. I guess I got mixed feelings on that.
Well, I think you get mixed feelings, and I'm a little nervous about it too, is, once these platforms start getting in the middle and creating transactions on the part of the podcaster kind of could lose control of that relationship, right?
Yep.
Right.
Because they're definitely not going to tell you who it was. From privacy standpoint, you'll have gotten a donation. And then, the next problem is guess what Apple has to do then? They got to send you a 1099.
Right. That's true.
because they've distributed money to you.
Well, doesn't PayPal do that too?
Yeah, PayPal does that. And you have to put in, same with Patreon, you have to put your tax info in.
Right.
But,
Right.
Then what happens to the dude, obviously you don't get a 1099 until you've made $600, I think. Anything
Correct.
under that is self-reporting. So they wouldn't have to, but at $601, then Apple's going to have to do the, 1099 paperwork.
Do all the paperwork for all that.
Right? Yep. So are they going to take 15% to do the paperwork? No, they're going to take 30 to make it worth their while to pay their accountants to have to do, or, build some automated system that is going to cut the 1099.
Yep.
By the way,
because they're probably not going to work with a third party for that.
No, I don't think so.
I don't see Apple doing that.
So well, anyway, I got our right graphic up on the show. I forgot to put that up earlier. You probably can't see it, Rob, but you've seen my dinosaur. The audience has been seeing my dinosaur here for a little bit. Now they're seeing the new media show logo. So, hey, James, thanks for joining the live show, and appreciate you being here. Let me check over on YouTube and see if anybody's made a comment. Brett, thanks for coming in on YouTube. We appreciate you being here. Get a number of listeners over there. So,
hey Todd, one topic that's that kind of dovetails off of the Apple conversation is how important do you think it is that we're able to via just click of a button in our platforms be able to submit to Apple?
Well, we've wanted it for a long time.
Right.
But Apple has not wanted us to capture, do any type of capturing of email or passwords for, even though some services are violating Apple terms of service in doing that.
Right.
Apple doesn't want us to be, have anything to do. So now if Apple made some sort of, basically where they click a button in our sites and it does a pop-up and we pre-fill the data and then that's all driven by Apple and allows that submission to happen, then that's great. But we've been asking Apple that for years.
Right, because if you look at it, most of the other competing platforms to them support an API submission from our tools, right?
Well, not many.
What?
Spotify, but there's not very many others that support an API submission.
Well, you've got Deezer, and and you've got the iHeartRadio platform. You've got
not everyone has access to the API to iHeart.
Yeah,
that's limited. Right. We don't have access to the iHeart API.
Oh, you don't? Oh,
no, only you guys and your prior employer have access to iHeart's API.
Spreaker.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't realize. I thought that maybe you guys had access to that.
No, they've only made that available to two companies.
Okay, and I just accidentally are part of those two companies. Is that what you're saying, Todd?
Yeah.
But there are other platforms that we would love to have this
relationship
with too, and that's like Stitcher is another one. TuneIn is another one. Because I think that at the end of the day, and I think, we both have this goal of eliminating complexity for podcasters. That this is one thing that we've been pushing for a long time. And many of those other platforms, there's less sensitivity to that. It's just getting it done.
So,
getting resources done to apply to it to get it done.
What drove this? Did you hear something? Or are you just speculating?
No, I'm just throwing the conversation out again just to reinforce the message.
Hey, Apple, I know you're listening. Yes, we still want the ability to do this.
Right.
But again, they're also working. I think what probably they do too, but it's just like anything else. Where is it in the backlog? Where is it in the Scrum dev cycle? When are we going to be able to put devs on it? What priority is that?
And is there some way that the technology can be built? And I'm pretty sure it is, where the information exchange between Apple and the publishing platforms can remain, separate, right? So we're not capturing that Apple ID information, but yet it's still passing to Apple.
Right.
And to assure that there's security on that, to enable that. So I don't know that it's a technology obstacle. I think it's more of a well, let's just get it done. And
Yeah, it's basically to do it. I would be relatively simple,
right,
because all we do is do an API call to their system to pop up the box, and we fill the box with the right data, and then the person puts in their password and their login and password, and it does. We don't see it because it's encrypted. And
right. I mean, and that's what Spreaker was able to do when I was working there. That was a big push that I was doing with trying to automate the submissions to as many of these platforms as we can. And the Spreaker wound up building a pop-up, just like what you said, that passed the RSS feed via the URL to Apple, and then the podcaster would just log in with their user ID and password, and that feed would populate the form on the next page that they would
Apple?
go to, or the subsequent page. That's what it was.
With Apple?
Yeah, correct. And and then eventually you just work your way through the process via the pop-up.
So you guys just tricked it, is what you did. You engineered a solution to do that. There was no integration with Apple.
No, exactly. Apple actually told us that you could pass the feed URL to them through the login screen. So that basically, really, what it did was it created a separation between Spreaker and Apple around the Apple ID and password. So, right.
And I don't know, to be honest with you, we may be sending that data too. I haven't submitted a show to Apple Podcasts in years. So,
but it's one of the big reasons I'm raising this topic is that there's many platforms, and hopefully they're listening here, that we would love to get more of an automation submission process with them to help podcasters instead. As you know, Todd, there's so much confusion and customer support around, well, how do I get into this or how do I get into that platform? Where do you have to go? What's required? All that stuff. And I think both of us are willing to build that into our publishing tools. So
I had
just getting support on both sides for it.
I had a conversation with a company yesterday or the day before, and it was discussion about tying into our API.
Mm-hmm.
And the story usually goes, we want to work with you, and we'll say, well, here's the API, we'll give you the token, you go ahead and write to be able to do this mission, we'll do a test and make sure it all works. That's usually how the conversation goes. And then they integrate into our publishing platform or whatever. This conversation went like, no, we're not going to integrate into your platform. You have to actually reach back to us and pull this data from us. And I'm kind of like, you have a product, you're trying to make it easier for your people, and yet you want me to do the dev work to make it easier so are you going to pay me for that work? The way I kind of looked at it at this point is that if I'm going to support, if some company comes to me, and maybe this is the wrong way to completely think about it, but if you want me to integrate with your platform and I'm not making any money off that, you need to do the work. Now, if I'm making some money off it, I'll do the work to do the integration. But if I add some, if it's going to help me have more features for our customers, then maybe we'll do it. Maybe there's enough added value that it's something we can justify as a new feature. But oftentimes now what we continue to see is these companies that are oftentimes charging more for their services than what we're charging for hosting, and making money their own way, and yet want to integrate. To me, without revenue exchange, you do the integration. You're making money on your own. You do the integration back to us. But I don't know. It's a kind of an internal discussion point, and we look at each thing case by case. But We've seen, here's what we did. We integrated with Spotify, right? We did all the work
Right.
to integrate
And
with Spotify.
There was so much that went on with that.
So many hours.
Right.
And so much support. Yes, our podcasts are excited to be on Spotify. And it was, we had to do it.
Rabid is probably a better word to describe it.
And then Spotify built their own ingestion way, number one, after we had told them from the beginning that's what you should do. And second is they bought a competition and are potentially competing with us now. So I get real hesitant to integrate with someone. As a matter of fact, recently I had someone say, I said, you're going to have to sign a non-compete, a 10-year non-compete that if we integrate with you, you can't compete in our business space for 10 years. And the person wouldn't sign it. So I'm just like, okay, so if you got your own 3-year plan on where you're headed, and all of a sudden this work we did and there was no money for us, and yet you then 3 years from now starts competing with me and I helped you. So
yeah, Todd, I think I know who you're referring to here.
Well, there's two companies.
Right, I know.
Actually, 3. There's 3 now.
Yeah. Right.
So
yeah, no, it's a valid point. I mean, I guess we don't have to go there too far, but can easily kind of get taken advantage. Right?
I'm not saying take advantage of. It's just like, buyer beware, right?
Right.
Or trick me once, trick me twice. And
right.
And it's the same point. Sometimes there's stuff that our podcasters want and they ask for, and it makes sense for us to integrate with someone.
To do it just because that's what our customers are wanting. Right. Exactly. And that's always a factor that we have to consider when we make these type of deal relationships. Todd, did you see this site? I don't know how new it is or how long it's been around, but it's called a Listener.
I haven't
actually. Yeah, it's at listnr.tech. I think it's an interesting thing too. It's the headline of the website is "Start a podcast in 30 plus languages without recording anything."
Yeah, Listener helps convert your blog posts or any text for voice over for podcasts. Well, let me talk about this. This is not the first time we've seen this.
No, but it's
in the early days.
It's probably a good one to talk about.
Yeah. So there's 2 things to look at it. When we first started the directory, I was often going through and look, because we were getting submissions all the time for the directory for podcasts. And they happen to Tech Podcast, believe it or not, more than on Blueberry.com. People would apply to be on techpodcast.com. And part of our thing was they had to have 7 episodes, and I went through and reviewed. But oftentimes the podcasts were nothing more than blog posts that were being today in history. As a machine that was reading the blog post and making a podcast out of it.
And it's text to voice technology.
Right. And it was basically a bot that was going through and submitting these shows. And I had to clear literally over the years, probably thousands of these stupid bot to text podcasts that were submitted to the directory that had maybe 3 episodes. And what they were is they were doing was SEO manipulation. They were doing 3 or 4 podcasts on a certain topic. And it was really, and the names come through like best implant podcast or something. They were really gaming the system by creating a bunch of false content. At least that's the game they played early on. Now that kind of went away because maybe Google smacked it down or who knows, and that tactic didn't work any longer. But now, start a podcast in 30 languages without recording anything. Can you actually convert a actual audio file? Can you take a podcast? So let me look at the pricing here.
I don't believe it works taking an English podcast and converting it into 30 languages. I don't know that they're doing that yet.
So you have to have
there's probably a play for that. And one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this too is because it raises a lot of issues as you look to the future of this medium, right? Let's say you, Todd, or myself, we go to a website. And I think there is a website that allows you to do this right now, where you go in and you basically create an audio profile of your speech patterns, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you say a bunch of words into it, not unlike what Amazon did with their smart speakers platform, or Google did, or whatever. That woman that you talk to is actually, a voice actor came in and recorded all those words, right? And what the computer does is it recombines those words into various responses, right? So it's kind of similar technology from the standpoint that you could go in and create a profile of your speaking abilities, right? And then when you upload text, it basically takes that profile and creates the words in your voice, right? So do we want to have podcasts that sound like ones that are done by me, that are generated by a computer
in French or whatever,
based on me typing what I'm going to say? Or the other side of it would be taking the audio side of what I say in a podcast, running it through these servers to create different language versions of it, right?
So the model I like the best is having a 99% accurate transcript.
Right.
And having that applied to 50 different languages. That would be pretty cool. Now, managing that, you don't even want to think about it, because that's because you're going to have 50 different feeds and blah, blah, blah. It's a lot of work to do that. There better be some reward, and it better be good. It better be really good. It better not be just some drone talking that sounds like it's reading text from the page and, with no.
Well, Todd, it's going to have to be you. It's going to have to be, it's going to have to be, a voice profile.
Someone that's listening. Not necessarily. Let's say it's a French person that's never going to listen to the show because they don't speak English and they're listening in French. They don't care what my voice sounds like.
Can they take my voice profile and convert it into French?
Maybe. I don't know. If they can't, they will.
They'll probably figure it out based on syllables and sounds that are associated with certain letters. Maybe. I don't know.
So,
So
their price.
It's an interesting question, right?
Yeah. So right now they're free. 5 audio conversions per month is free. Male, female, and neutral voices. Access to all tools up to 5,000 words. Pro, unlimited audio conversions per month, $12 per month, 60 audio conversions, unlimited summaries, unlimited embeds, audio player customization, audio player analytics, and up to 50,000 words. Now, how many words? I forget. What is the average number of words a person speaks per second? Is it 6 or 7?
I'm not sure. I've never seen a number.
Yeah, so let's Google that. What's the average words per minute? Okay. Spoken. So if we're just talking, 150 words per minute is an average, according to the National Center for Voice and Speech. So 50,000 divided by 150, that's quite a bit. Let me go back then and look at their pricing again. Let's see here, up to 50,000 words per recording or total. So let me go and do the calc here. It's high-level math, of course. I think it's 45 or something like that. So 50,000 divided by 150. Is it 450 minutes? No, it's 333 minutes. So that's essentially 5.5 hours of content. But how many language conversions do you get with that? So interesting. And then $50 a month, unlimited. I guess they have unlimited summaries, 15 accounts for teams. Some podcasters are going to be using this next week.
Oh yeah,
and experimenting with this.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I guess we'll see. But it was interesting. It was covered in a podcast newsletter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So if you do some searching in Google under like real human custom voice profiling, I'm trying to come up with a good combination of words to try and find companies out there that you could go to create a voice profile for yourself. So let's say you're a podcast host, and you want to create a digital profile of your voice,
Well,
right?
I think
you could,
Adobe does that a little bit for word replacement,
right?
but I don't think it. Well, I don't know. I haven't checked too deep into it. So there is some, I think Adobe was the one that did if you needed to change 2 or 3 words, you could do it.
I think it's there's one called Human Voice Bank. Anyway, I'll probably do some more research.
Yeah.
Maybe we can talk about it more on the next show. But
hey, there's a post on a comment on YouTube. Nate says, "What's up, guys? Really enjoy your shows and all the other podcasts about podcasting. What's the best way to get into the industry? I'm looking for a career change." Oh, that's a big question, Nate. First of all, you can start a podcast. That's number one. Always, if you want to be,
that'd be the first thing I'd do.
if you're going to be in the podcasting space, you probably need a podcast. That's learn the ins and outs of podcasting. As an example, Blueberry, how we've hired all of our tech support people is it's been from podcasters that use our tools and know our systems in and out. So all my support guys all were fans of our company, were fans of our tools, and then basically when we put the job announcements out, that we knew who was going to be a good candidate for support. Now there's all kinds of podcasting jobs being announced all the time, and people are doing stuff like editing. What we often find is people that fail as podcasters become editors because they figure out that's a way to make money by doing editorial services. And I think that anybody you hire that's an editor best actually have some podcasting skills. And that's the way it was with our Blueberry Pro team. Everyone on our Blueberry Pro team was vetted, the content creators first, good content creators first before they were, do editing and production. But then there's lots of jobs being announced. We're probably going to have a job announcement in the next month or so for a project manager of sorts. So,
And a great place to look for podcast jobs is just subscribe to podnews.net and subscribe to that newsletter, because it's a section in every newsletter that's published. It's called Pod Jobs, and it runs through a whole list of job opportunities in the medium.
But definitely most folks that have, and maybe not out of New York or California, because a lot of those folks hire people out of Hollywood. They hire production people. They hire people that have had some sort of radio experience. But if you have none of that, then the way to get experience is, strap on a mic and start doing a show. Learn the chops of what it takes to do a podcast. I think that, and here's the best part: you don't have to do a career change. You can work on that for a year, or 18 months, or 24 months. Get some experience, and then watch those job listings and see if something fits.
Yeah, I know. When I got started, I was working full-time jobs. Todd, I was doing my radio show.
Yeah,
I was working full-time jobs in podcasting and prior to podcasting, when I was doing the radio show. So it was like doing the content was like a weekend thing, or evening thing or whatever. So a lot of podcasters do that too.
Nate, I was in the Navy when I started Blueberry, and all my team members had regular full-time jobs at regular companies. And then I transitioned, and then my podcast was able to pay my salary. And so, kind of worked into it that way. So it is and another thing too is go to the conferences, get to be known, contribute to the conversation. Come up to the podcasting companies and say, "Hey, I'm Nate. I'm doing a podcast, and I'm looking to get in the podcasting space. Yeah. And what do you guys got going on?" And we'll find out where you're at, what you have. And you may be surprised that, because if we like you, we'll say, well, let's remember that Nate guy that came and talked to us. Let's go talk to him and see if he would be a fit for us.
Hey, Todd, I got an email today from the NAB about the radio show, which is a separate conference that the NAB does. That is basically, it's scheduled for mid-September. That it got canceled today.
Oh,
so when that event was starting to, actually, it was held in Dallas this past year. That event started to add a lot of podcasting session.
So they actually canceled it for September already.
Right. Yep.
Damn.
And they announced that they were going to put together a virtual event, just like what the NAB did with their NAB Express. So
that was
just announced today.
NAB is going to be, that's another conference that can't imagine the money they've lost this year.
Yeah. Huge.
Holy cow. There's this thing has got huge ramifications down the road. The state of Michigan's already telling schools 25% cut. You're going to be going down. You're getting that much less per student.
Yeah, a lot of the states are losing a lot of revenue right now.
Yeah. So this thing has long-lasting ramifications. Dave says, I was in the Navy too, USS Mobile, USS Dallas, and the USS Mobile. Well, I think you were a bit of a bubblehead there, Dave. Welcome to the show, and I'll be first to say, and if you haven't heard it on the show before, I did 25 years in the Navy, and I only toured ships. And, of course, I won't refer to ships as boats, because boats are a little bit different, as you well know. And it's true. You don't want to call a sub guy that, you don't want to tell a sub guy they're on a ship. They're on a boat. I think I'm right.
Interesting distinction, Todd.
Oh, it's big. And so, yeah, I flew the entire time on P3s. I racked up a per diem counter. My sea duty counter is all zeros. But my per diem counter has lots of numbers on it, and only a Navy guy will understand what I'm talking about.
Right. Yeah.
Dave said, I'd love to work in podcasting. I'd love to work with Spreaker, but certainly open-minded to the possibilities. Why would you want to go to work for Spreaker?
Actually, it's Voxnest, actually, Todd.
And no one knows who that is. No one knows who that is. It's Spreaker. You don't hear anyone talking about Voxnest. Such a bad branding decision. You weren't part of that decision, were you?
No, I was kind of on the opposite side of that.
Yeah, okay. So anyway, Spreaker.
It could have a little bit to do with why I'm not there. No.
Oh, Tim says one ping only. That's
right.
funny.
Right. So, Sammy, did you hear that that NIT now is a podcast host that's been around for a long time, that was started by Chris Smith? Chris Smith is now the CEO or president of a company called Podcast Ads.
So, Chris Smith?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a change for him.
Well, it's the same company. It's just a different division of the company. So NIT has a new CEO. His name is Matt Kinzer, who is the co-founder of NIT. So
they split their ad sales and the other,
which was a technology platform, was more of a ad insertion, ad hosting, or podcast hosting called NIT.
You know what that is?
Yes.
It's
knitting.
No, it's a sleight of the hand.
Yeah.
It's just.
I can talk a lot about Chris and NIT.
It's just okay. So if you think about PodTrack, right? They're a measurement company. Then what's their other company called?
Podcast Ad.
No. I'm talking about PodTrack. What's the other?
Oh.
What's the other one? See, we don't even know it here.
It's escaped my brain right this moment.
I have to go to their website. So it's
what's it called? Oh no. Anyway, I'm drawing a blank right now.
Let's see here if I can find it.
Shouldn't.
Authentic.
Authentic. That's
Yeah.
right.
So they have Authentic and they have PodTrack. They have the measurement and the sales. So this is
Well, and the hosting too.
okay.
PodTrack also hosts.
Some, but anyway, it's the sleight of the hands again, because you can't be the fox and the hen house, right? Because you got to have measurement separate from ad sales.
Right.
Okay, so you have two entities, yet they all work together. So it's just hocus pocus. So is this what Chris did?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
So you've got the tech and then you got ad sales. So
Well, that NIT has always had, or actually here most recently, they had an ad marketplace that they were promoting as part of a service within NIT, right? So I think what this is just a breaking out of the two companies into two separate entities. So
Dave says
inside of the larger entity called Pale Grove.
Okay, so Dave says
Pale Groove.
Right. Dave says, "Wow, Todd, tell us how you really feel." Well, we're pretty straightforward on this show,
right?
We really are, and we know. Rob knows firsthand. He used to work over there. So, and I've got my own opinion, but they did this division, and no one knows who. If you talk to podcasters, maybe new podcasters know who Voxnest is, but anyone that's been around this space before, they don't really associate it. They should have just called it, left the main company was Spreaker and had a subdivision called Voxnest.
Well, I mean, I can share probably a little bit of the reasoning behind that formation of that new company. It was kind of twofold. Spreaker acquired basically Blog Talk Radio, which merged in a whole nother kind of business into Spreaker, right, which is a separate platform. Blog Talk Radio has been around for a long time, and
Blog Talk Radio.
They've had two different boards of directors, so they had to merge employees and boards and all this stuff together into one company, and it was just easier for them to create a parent company that was sitting on top of both of that merger, right, and to create something new. And then secondarily, the other benefit was Voxnest was going to be seen as an enterprise company, not so much a consumer brand like Spreaker was seen. So those are really the two reasons why Voxnest exists.
So some of us have two company names too. Blueberry Podcasting is not the parent company; it's Raw Voice.
Right.
Raw Voice
is not out there promoting Raw Voice.
No.
Where they were out there promoting Voxnest really over the top of. So, which I kind of didn't agree with. Yeah.
So here's the funny part. My son, who's in Hawaii, my oldest son, he sent me this text about a week ago. And he's like scolding me about how our website wasn't set up and he couldn't log in and all these things. And then I'm like, what are you talking about? And then he sent me a picture of Raw Voice's website. And I laughed. And I'm like, dude, go over to blueberry.com and look over there. And he went over there and he's like, even my son he only knows Raw Voice because that's all he heard about when he was a kid and stuff. So he doesn't really understand the Raw Voice is where the checks come from. My paycheck comes from Raw Voice, but Blueberry Podcasting is what we do business under. As a matter of fact, so for him, he was even he was the opposite. He didn't know that Blueberry Podcasting existed. So it's kind of funny in a sense.
Right. I mean, I'm a big fan of keeping things straightforward. It helps people. It just lowers the amount of confusion and questions that you have to address before you can get to a point of you can actually do a business deal with somebody, right? It's like, okay, how does that work with that? And you go into this big explanation. I don't know how many times I had to have that conversation with people that walk by the booth, right? And they say, well, is this where Spreaker is? Or things like that. It's like there was confusion, right?
Well, so it's just it's okay. So Libsyn's got a little history there too with Wizard and all this,
right. But it's clean now, though.
Well, that's a fact. And here's the funny thing too is if we'd have been smart in the early days, we'd never launched Blueberry. It'd have been under Raw Voice. We were.
I was a supporter of Raw Voice as your name.
Yeah,
So,
and
way back.
So
Right.
for us, it was just like, we made decisions back then that you just, because it started out with Raw Voice was we created Podcast Connect, Podcaster News.
And you guys have rawvoice.com.
Yeah, we got rawvoice.com. Yeah,
which is spelled properly.
Right, it is. and we start
Blueberry is not spelled
all right, and we start out with Podcaster News, and that
Right.
That was kind of an experiment that was a spitball that was thrown up on the wall and didn't stick.
Right.
And then we said, okay, we instead of just keeping the Raw Voice name and launching, because we were a company I'll be frank, we were making shit up as we went.
Right.
We really were. We were, we're trying
these
to.
companies have been doing that.
We were trying to figure out our DNA, and we had this great tagline, Fresh Organic Media. It was really awesome. And then we decided, well, we can have this podcast directory where we can get podcasters to come in and be on the directory, and we can get them using our stats, and then that will be a tie-in for them to be able to get advertising deals with us. And that's how Blueberry began, and it was a mindset behind it. We've got Raspberry, RASBRRY.com. We've got a couple of other ones that are out there that, why? We were sitting in Chicago. It was cold. We're drinking probably a little too much. And it was .com days, and no vowels was cool at that time. And who knows? Fresh Organic Media, okay, kind of led into, kind of understood the tie-in. So,
Right.
and then you spend 5 years after you've launched saying, why did we do that?
Yeah.
What stupid brand decision was that? And now everyone knows who we are. And every once in a while someone laughs, but it is. And why didn't we had all kinds of podcast domains. Why didn't we use a podcast domain? Because Apple was like forcing apps to change their name because they had pod in the name.
Right.
And so we were afraid to name anything with a pod in it in those early days.
Yeah, right. Right.
Do you even know what Libsyn stands for? It's lubricated syndication. I bet you a lot of.
Did you say lubricated syndication? No,
I did say lubricated.
Liberated.
I know. I'm just playing.
It's funny though when you think of lubricated syndication.
Yeah, lubricated. Probably a lot of it was lubricated. Knowing those guys over there from the early days, probably some bowls too.
Oh boy.
The early team at Libsyn. Yeah, come on now.
We could talk for hours.
Oh, we could. We know where all the dead bodies are buried.
Libsyn, right?
Yeah, we know where all the dead bodies are. So anyway,
yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I still
Todd,
go ahead.
We haven't talked about Podcast Magazine yet.
Oh, wait! I wonder if I can find this page. What is our web? Is it podcastmagazine.com?
Podcast Mag. Oh, on Twitter, it's podcast. I think it's Podcast Mag. Something like that. Here, let me find it too.
Let me see if I can Google it. Find it. This is hilarious. Okay, so it is podcastmagazine.com. So let me. How much did they pay for this cover? So let me bring this up. Special Father's Day LGBTQ edition, and Podcast Magazine's #1 dad in podcasting, Adam Carolla and Norman Pattiz, the Podcast One Podfather.
Well, it's
Pattis, not
true.
Pattiz, Pattis. So, but when we saw this,
yeah. What can you say, Todd? I don't know. Yeah, Podcasting Magazine's #1 dad in podcast. Norm Pattis, I guess, is who he's referring to here. Yeah.
Is Adam Carolla a dad? I think he is, right?
Just just full disclosure, I used to work for Norm, so yeah.
I rolled when I saw this
Right.
cover, and I know the editor of the magazine kind of took exception to our tweets, but yeah.
But he, to be fair to the magazine, he had a whole section in the magazine on. It's called Dads with Mics, our first annual top 50 dads in podcasting section of the magazine. So that's kind of where this theme came from.
Okay.
But it's still a funny thing between Adam and Norm, right?
Because Norm is not
the relationship that I know about.
No, Norm is not Adam's daddy.
Far from it. So,
Norm, you got to admit, if you're watching this, that's some funny stuff right there.
I know. Well, Steve Ulcer, he's the editor of this. He doesn't really understand the history here. So
no,
he doesn't understand why we think it's funny.
Oh, Steve, if you'd have sent us the advance, I'd be like, hey. But I guess 90% of the people that see the magazine cover don't have a clue.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's fine. And Norm is the podfather of Podcast One.
Oh,
there's little debate on that.
Dave says, "Fill us in. I'm not as informed. What's so funny?" Well,
yeah. Anyway, I don't think either one of us want to go down that path too far, but that podfather name is pretty much
that is
singly associated with Adam Curry.
And John,
and that's kind of where it kind of conflicted a little bit.
Adam Curry and Dave Weiner are the two podfathers in my book, and will be till I take my last breath. And I understand that the Podcast One podfather is Norm Pattis.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But, and it just makes it look in this magazine as if Norm is Adam's daddy. That's the kind of the implication here.
Right.
And that is not the relationship those two have.
No, it's not. And that shouldn't be a big shock to anybody thinking about it.
No. So it just struck me so funny to see those two in a picture, and then the title of it, but I've also got, some significant history here.
Right. Well, both of us do. That's the thing. Yeah.
And, someday, Rob, we're going to have to be old and broke
and not doing this show anymore. Right?
And write a book about, and not doing anything in podcasting. And we could probably write a podcast bestseller, the history of every, we'd have to change all the names.
Hey, Todd, so I just want to pose this question to you just more from a humor perspective. How long are we going to keep doing this show?
You want to quit?
No, I'm not saying I want to quit. I'm just telling you, can you see yourself doing this show when you're 80 years old?
No.
Talking about the podcast?
No way. And no one's going to listen. It's lucky if they listen now.
They'll really call us the old geezer podcasters, right? Is that
I don't know. I don't know.
Is that what happened?
What do we got? Another 10 or 15 years in us?
I don't know.
I don't know.
There's going to be a certain segment of the podcasting community that'll be happy to see us go.
I the way I've said about any show that I do, when it stops being fun, I'm going to stop.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah.
If it's no more fun and it's becoming work, and then, we're not getting value out of it, or we're boring.
Right.
Then we'll quit. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm seeing, this industry is really hitting its stride right now. And, my involvement in the Podcast Academy is an interesting, challenge.
Oh, I'm sure, because I'm sure you have a set of views there that they're probably largely not understanding.
Yeah, but I believe that they will over time here. So
because corporate podcasting and their, I'm going to use the word that probably doesn't exist, thoughtology. Is that even a word?
Yeah.
Their thoughtology is not the same by any means of what our DNA came from. So
right.
We didn't come from radio. We didn't come from television. We didn't come from, I worked on airplanes as a geek, so.
Yeah, I was a marketing guy that came out of grocery store marketing. I used to own a restaurant.
Yeah.
I used, really my background's really marketing more than anything else.
Yeah,
I just saw podcasting as a new marketing medium.
I grew up on a dirt road. My grandfather was a cash crop farmer. My dad had a construction company. I joined the Navy, right out of high school, didn't get my degree until I almost retired. My degree is in professional aeronautics, has nothing to do with podcasting space whatsoever. My degree, I'm supposed to be running airports. So literally, that's kind of my background, or being involved in aviation somehow. So, so from that instance, we came from a background, at least I did, and Rob, you did too. You had some media stuff. I had none, zero. I did a blog. I had a bulletin board back in the day. So really, maybe it doesn't seem such a stretch from point A to Z, but it's just, we come from different spaces. Dave says, are you guys going to do the TMZ version of podcasting? I think we kind of are a little bit already.
I think we are a little bit already.
Yeah, almost a little bit. But we aren't as harsh on people as we used to. We used to be a lot more harder on companies.
Yeah, I think and how I've changed my views too is I want this industry to stay united, right? And not get divided. I think that the world has too much division in it right now. But, and that's one of the reasons that I got heavily involved in the Podcast Academy. I don't want to see this industry fracture, right? It may still happen. Maybe I'm thinking that I have too much influence to keep it from happening, but at least I can try and keep people together. And hopefully we can all have fun doing this, and we can all value each other on both sides from our different perspectives.
And got to understand, some people are coming into this with a pile of cash that neither of us have ever been exposed to. We've never been exposed to piles of cash from investment. We laugh on this show often on how people that get 60, 70, $100 million. And I'm astonished that they're able to literally spend it all. They don't have no problem doing it, but I'm astonished that they spend that kind of money. And I just think to myself, if Blueberry Podcasting was given $100 million, I'd have to bring someone else in to help figure out how I would be able to I know how to spend it, but I'd have to bring in some more team members, which would help me spend that money the right way.
Right.
That's an incredibly large amount of money for a small company to even consider.
Right. Yeah, it is.
But yet, I'm amazed at my team and what they do every day for the resources we have and what we're able to put out. Same thing with Libsyn. Now, Libsyn, they have a little bit higher revenue than most, so they got a little more play money, I guess the best way to say it.
Right.
So if I had Libsyn's play money, I'd be able to do a lot more than if I had Libsyn's play money, Libsyn wouldn't exist.
Oh, really, Tom?
Yeah, I'd put you guys out of business.
Oh, okay.
If I had your guys' money, I would.
Wow. Okay. I don't think I want to comment on that one too much.
Oh, probably not. No, but it's, you just look at you get a lot of people, a lot of folks building stuff now, a lot of competition in this space. It's, it's good and it's healthy. But you look at the amount of money so that's a large difference. But Libsyn, what did they start from? They started from 3 or 4 guys that built a platform that got acquired, and they did.
Right.
They built it from the ground up too.
Yeah, I knew all 4 of those guys really well back then too, and they were pretty wild and crazy guys. No question about it. And in some ways, that kind of held them back a little bit too. At different phases in what happened is that they were a little unconventional. So, but they were thinking differently, and that's why they built the company that exists today.
And go ahead.
Todd, did you see Podcast Movement has announced that they're going to have a virtual meetup?
Where?
It's on Thursday, June 4th. It's tomorrow.
Oh, that June 4th is a pretty special day.
It is. Huh?
It absolutely is.
Well, what is special about it?
It's my birthday.
Well, of course. That's why they're doing it.
Oh, great. Well, they didn't invite me, so I guess I don't get any cake.
It's this thing is going from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it's really Todd's birthday party.
Well, I'll be doing the Geek News Central podcast at that time.
You will be.
Yeah, I'll be live
on your birthday, huh?
Absolutely. The show must go on.
The show must go on. Right.
What else am I going to do? It's not like the bars are open, so I'm not going to the bars.
Right. So I don't know what technology these guys are using to put on this virtual event.
Maybe they're experimenting.
Yeah, I'm sure, and I do want to get Dan on the show here soon to talk about what they're doing going forward. I don't know if he's ready to talk about it yet, but so you can go to, I don't know, Todd, if I posted a link to this in my Twitter feed at Rob Greenlee, so you can see it there if you want to click on it. And it was also out in their PodMove newsletter today as well. So if you want to go to podcastmovement.com, and you can probably find it there, Todd.
Yeah, so let me find your...
So it starts here, 1 day, 3 hours, 28 minutes, and 50 seconds.
Oh, it's called Sugo. All right, let me bring up the website here.
So,
podcast.swoogo.com/virtual meetup. Now let's look here. Let's do a little investigation here. I didn't get it. So let me just go to swoogo.com. Oh, come on now. Let me back this up. We'll see what this platform's all about. So, live or virtual, get a platform that can do both. Unconventional 2020, lessons learned. It's right on the corner. Join us for the best virtual event and virtual events. So, get a demo. All right. Doesn't show very many pictures of what this thing actually looks like, but maybe this is an attempt to...
I'm not familiar with this platform, so I don't know.
Neither am I.
Let's bring your virtual events to life. So
this thing
is a virtual event platform.
The reason why we don't know very much about it, Rob, wait till the screen shows up. Yeah.
Wow.
It better be pretty fancy.
Yeah.
Wow. Starts at $6,600, ladies and gentlemen. Wow. This thing must be a serious platform.
Must be some experimentation going on.
I think so. I think your event is online. So is it going to show what it looks like? It's got a lot of virtual screens. It doesn't really show you. I like these types of graphics, but sometimes it's nice to be able to actually
see a
real screenshot of how it looks. But
right.
Anyway, well, interesting.
The unconventional something. The letters were upside down. Todd, did you see that?
Yeah, I did. And this is, ladies and gentlemen, let me show you something. If your website does this, I'll show you exactly what I do. I'm going over here for those of you listening. I'm going over to the right-hand side of the website, and there's a X. You know how you close a browser tab, and yes, that is gone. That's what I do to sites that have those pop-ups like that.
Okay.
Call me not. At least they waited till I was leaving before they popped that up on my screen. Some sites, they pop those things up 3 seconds after you're there. I really, I'll be honest with you, I really hate those pop-ups.
Right. Because it pops up before you even know if you want to do anything.
At least they let me cruise around, and they waited till I was leaving the page, and they sensed I was leaving and popped it up. So that wasn't so bad, but
right. Yeah.
I don't have much patience for those pop-ups.
No.
But I know a lot of you have them on your websites to build your mailing list. But
yep.
I also like to see how many of you lose people that come to your website because of those pop-ups too.
Lots of people do.
Hey, Rob, guess what?
Yeah.
We're at an hour and a half.
I know, we made it.
I looked at the clock. I'm like, wow, we're done.
We always seem to make it, don't we, Todd?
We do.
To our 90-minute finish line.
Yep. So let me double check chit chat windows and make sure we're not missing anything important here. Brett Bell says, do you guys remember Podcast User Magazine back in the day? Yeah, we did. That was done by Gary Leland.
I believe, Todd, you and I were both writers in that magazine.
We were. Right. And it was hard to
keep up with it.
I don't have time to write hardly anymore. So I got 4 or 5 product reviews sitting over here on a desk that I've got to get knocked out at some point. I just never seem to find the extra hours to get them done. So, but yeah, we do remember that.
I have an article that I need to write on the Podcast Academy. So that's the thing I'm starting to work on.
Well, do you have a copy editor to review your writings? It's a great thing when you have that.
Also, I found a tool that's really, really good for that too. Is a tool called Grammarly.
Oh, I rely on it daily and by the minute. It's a wonderful tool. And if any of you are grammatically challenged like I am, and it's been very evident over the years, Grammarly is a great tool. It's not perfect, but it gets you about 95% there.
Yeah, I mean, it has its own writing philosophy. And sometimes that doesn't always ride along with mine. So, but we always seem to negotiate a settlement in the end.
Yeah, picking certain. It's a little comma heavy at times, but I'm a little comma light, so maybe it's a good thing.
You don't want to be extreme on either side on the comma thing.
Yeah, well, it's usually right, and I'm usually wrong, or there. That's a good one. Yeah. Or you are.
Right.
It reminds me, it is.
Yeah, sometimes it feels like it's a direct call to Mignon Fogarty.
Yeah, so I don't know if Mignon listens to the show. I know what she does once in a while, but I wonder what she thinks of that tool. We ought to ask her sometime.
Right.
So, yeah. She thinks if it gets it right, or she even uses it herself. I kind of doubt it.
So, for those that don't know who we're talking about, Mignon does a podcast called Grammar Girl. Yeah.
And if you want to know how to do long tail format, evergreen format, you go listen to the Quick and Dirty Tips Network. They do it the best. No one does evergreen content better than them. And it's a fact.
Right.
They have shows that were produced 15 or 14, 13 years ago that do as good this month as they did the month that they were released. So it's a powerful, they have a powerful platform.
Yep. And they're actually growing their network too, beyond just, the Quick and Dirty Tips thing too.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Todd at Blueberry.com.
Right.
At Geek News is my Twitter address. Rob?
Yep. And I'm at Twitter as well. At Rob Greenlee, 2 E's. Go subscribe or follow me over there. And if you want to send me an email about podcasting, send it to robg@libsyn.com.
And again, if you have any comments on the show, just let us know. If you think we should talk to somebody that should be on the podcast that we haven't, have it on, we just let us know, and we'll always approach folks that you recommend. And we want to thank you for being here today. And again, we'll see you on Saturday at 12 noon Eastern. And
9 a.m. Pacific.
Yep, and we'll be live then. So we'll see you next time. Everyone, take care. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Okay. Yeah, bye.